authority acknowledges that in accordance with the provisions of Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty, the three countries will officially cease to be members of ECOWAS from 29 January 2025.
When Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso announced their decision to withdraw from the West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS in January this year, ECOWAS granted them a one-year period to change their decision. However, as the one-year period finally draws closer, it has become obvious that the three countries have no intention of changing their decision to withdraw from the bloc. As a result, ECOWAS recently announced that it has approved their withdrawal. ECOWAS also gave a 6-month transition period from January 29, 2025 to July 29, 2025, in hopes that the three countries could reconsider. While this is great news for Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, the question is, how will ECOWAS survive the exit of the three countries? Are we about to see ECOWAS disintegrate, or will both blocs work together? Let's find out. Last week, leaders of the regional bloc ECOWAS met in Abuja, Nigeria to deliberate on the decision of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso to withdraw from the bloc. Following the meeting, ECOWAS announced that it respects the decision of the three Sahel countries to leave and said that they are free to do so. However, the regional bloc offered a transitional period of 6 months. In the period between 29 January and 29 July 2025, the trio can be readmitted to the bloc should they decide to rejoin the community. Speaking on the issue, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Omar Touré, said in a statement, "The authority decided to set the period from 29 January 2025 to 29 July 2025 as a transitional period and to keep ECOWAS doors open to the three countries during the transition period." According to the president, the decision to withdraw from the bloc is disheartening, but he commended efforts by the bloc's envoys to resolve the crisis. Recall that a few months ago, the regional bloc granted Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Togo's Faure Gnassingbé the job of a mediator to facilitate negotiations between ECOWAS and the three Sahel nations. Unfortunately, these negotiations have not yielded any positive fruits as the three nations remain adamant about withdrawing from the bloc. Speaking at the meeting, the president of Nigeria and chairman of ECOWAS said the challenges faced around the world and in the region test its ability to work together. We must not lose sight of our fundamental responsibility, which is to protect our citizens and create an enabling environment where they can prosper, he said. Now, 2 days before the ECOWAS meeting, the AES Confederation held a ministerial-level meeting in Niger's capital, Niamey. Following this meeting, the three countries released a joint statement stating their decision to withdraw from the bloc was irreversible. So, this means that the 6-month transition period given by ECOWAS is just a waste of time. But here is a big question. Why is the regional bloc still hoping that the three countries would return? I mean, the handwriting is clear as day. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso will never return back to the bloc because they already have another bloc which they are pretty much committed to. Despite this, ECOWAS continues to hope for a return. The fact that ECOWAS granted an extra 6-month transition period spells some sort of desperation on the part of ECOWAS. It simply means that ECOWAS has a lot to lose with the withdrawal of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Some analysts say that the withdrawal of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso would be a major blow to regional unity and efforts to boost economic and security cooperation. But it's more than that. With their planned departure, the bloc will lose 76 million of its 446 million people and more than half its total geographical land area. But that's not all. ECOWAS would also lose massive contributions from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Before we proceed, here is a reminder to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel so that you can get more videos like this. However, all hope is not lost. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso will never return back to ECOWAS, but they have shown that they are willing to work with the regional bloc. A day before the ECOWAS meeting, the AES announced visa-free travel and residency rights for ECOWAS citizens. This means that the right of ECOWAS citizens to enter, circulate, reside, establish, and leave the territory of the new bloc would be maintained. According to the leaders of the AES, the decision had been taken in the spirit of friendship and to strengthen centuries-old ties among African people. On their part, ECOWAS has not yet said whether it will impose restrictions on people and goods coming from the three departing states, given that they are withdrawing from the bloc. However, it is doubtful that ECOWAS would want to block free movements and goods from the three Sahel countries, given that the AES members have made a gesture of goodwill in granting visa-free entry to ECOWAS citizens. In addition to this, some members of the ECOWAS community, including Togo, Senegal, and the new presidency of Ghana, are willing to work with the AES Confederation. According to President Faye, there is no reason for ECOWAS not to maintain relations amid ongoing security concerns in the region, where terrorists have gained ground. President Faye noted that this cooperation is crucial for fighting terrorism, addressing migration. President Faye also pointed out that the Alliance of Sahel States is currently facing a terrorist threat, and it is essential to maintain strong ties between its members. He said, "Terrorism can happen anywhere. The successes we have achieved with ECOWAS through various mechanisms should not be downplayed against the challenges of governance, which needs to be reformed. Through ECOWAS, we can address these challenges." The Confederation of Sahel States, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger is facing challenges. However, President Faye is not the only ECOWAS member who has highlighted the necessity of the bloc working with the AES Confederation. Some days after Faye made this statement, the chairman of the regional bloc, Bola Tinubu, president of Nigeria, announced that diplomacy will guide ECOWAS in its reintegration efforts with AES countries. President Tinubu said this during a meeting with German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who paid a visit to the country's capital, Abuja. He said, "We will continue to lead by example. We have innocent citizens who are victims of the military. We will continue to explore diplomatic channels to navigate without punishing these innocent people." This is a far cry from what happened when the coups just occurred in these countries. If you recall, President Tinubu was quite vocal against the military government and threatened military intervention in the case of Niger. When it became obvious that there was a possibility that military intervention would lead to an outbreak of regional war, Tinubu resorted to imposing stringent sanctions on the three countries. Now, here is a big question. Is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso justified in leaving the bloc? The West and defenders of the regional bloc would say otherwise, but we stand with the decision of the three Sahel countries. You see, before the frequent coups across West Africa in 2020, everyone considered the West African regional bloc ECOWAS to be somewhat trustworthy and capable of fulfilling the purpose it was established for. Indeed, the bloc had experienced some failures in the past that may have raised doubts about the bloc's credibility among some, but at the time it was still seen as a symbol of regional unity, stability, and economic integration in West Africa. However, the succession of coups that began in Mali and spread to Burkina Faso, Guinea, Chad, and Niger began to disintegrate the regional bloc and question its credibility. The actions of the regional bloc, associated with several coups, have led the majority of West Africans to describe the bloc as nothing more than a puppet organization that pursues its own interests and those of Western countries. So, it came as no surprise when Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso decided to withdraw from the bloc. It was a huge blow to ECOWAS because it was the first time ever that three member countries are voluntarily leaving the bloc since its establishment in 1975. But their withdrawal from the bloc brought something that has been hidden for a long time. As Traoré explained, ECOWAS has deviated from the ideals of the founding fathers. The regional bloc, ECOWAS, was established in 1975 with one goal, which is to promote cooperation and integration and raise the living standards of its peoples, and to maintain and enhance economic stability. However, due to political instability and civil wars rampant among its members, the goal was revised in 1993 to include a mandate to facilitate peace, security, and stability in West Africa. In 2001, the bloc went on to adopt the Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance, which states, "Every accession to power must be made through free, fair, and transparent elections, and member states must demonstrate a zero tolerance for power obtained or maintained by unconstitutional means." This means zero tolerance towards coup plotters. Now, based on this protocol, it would look like ECOWAS is justified in its actions towards Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. After all, they are currently being ruled by a military government. But the issue is not as simple as it seems. You see, ECOWAS says it stands for democracy and good governance, right? Yet among its member states, most of the elections conducted since its creation have not been free and fair. The leaders who end up winning the elections were never the people's choice, and under their leadership, the citizens suffer and struggle, the standards of living are low, and the economy is very bad. Meanwhile, the leaders are living affluent lives. Throughout all this, ECOWAS has never attempted to try and fix this issue. When Blaise Compaoré unconstitutionally ruled Burkina Faso for 27 years, did ECOWAS do something about it? Of course not. What about in Chad when the late Idriss Déby ruled the country for 30 years by manipulating the constitution? Did ECOWAS do something about it? No, they did not. In May 2015, ECOWAS abandoned a proposal to restrict West African presidents to 2 terms after opposition from Togo and the Gambia. This means that any African president can rule as long as they like, regardless of whether or not the people are okay with it. This is the exact same thing that happened on Thursday, February 8, 2024, when West African foreign ministers held an emergency meeting in Abuja to discuss not only the withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from the EU, but also how to respond to the Senegalese crisis sparked by President Macky Sall's postponement of elections. If you recall, Senegal's former president Macky Sall decided to postpone the elections for no reason. At the time, it was shocking because Senegal is considered one of the most stable democracies in West Africa. Immediately after the news of the president's decision broke, ECOWAS issued a statement saying that the Senegalese president should rescind his decision. But that was all ECOWAS did. The meeting held on February 8th ended with no conclusive sanctions on the former president for violating the bloc's democratic principles. Yet, ECOWAS did not hesitate to impose sanctions on Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso after the coup. This double standard is one of the reasons why Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso left the bloc. But how did ECOWAS get to this point? In truth, ECOWAS deserved it, but as Ivorian entrepreneur Stanislas Zeze put it, ECOWAS was overwhelmed by events and blind to the changing economic and political environment. The purpose of ECOWAS's creation in 1975 was to promote economic integration and improve living standards. But look at all 15 member countries of ECOWAS. Do living standards appear to have improved? Rather, all of these countries face staggering debt burdens, low living standards, poor infrastructure, and high poverty rates. The masses of all these countries have suffered terribly because of the bad decisions of the politicians who led ECOWAS, whom they did not elect. What has ECOWAS done concretely in its 49 years, other than facilitating free trade and movement among its member states? ECOWAS defenders would say that the bloc has had some success in maintaining and deepening peace, stability, and democracy, which are part of its goal of promoting economic integration, and they are right. For example, in April 2012, ECOWAS negotiated the restoration of constitutional order in Mali after President Amadou Toumani Touré was overthrown in a military coup. In September 2015, ECOWAS facilitated the return of interim President Michel Kafando after a military coup in Burkina Faso. It secured the democratic transfer of power in Gambia in January 2017 after longtime leader Yahya Jammeh, who lost the December 2016 presidential election to current President Adama Barrow, attempted to remain in office illegally. But the question still remains: how has ECOWAS contributed to regional stability? Let's take a look at the Sahel region, a part of West Africa. Does it look stable? Besides being known for high levels of poverty and low levels of development, countries in the Sahel region are currently considered the most dangerous travel destinations due to their high levels of insecurity. Jihadists and rebels have made the Sahel their playground, resulting in the deaths of millions of people and the displacement of many more. What has ECOWAS done as a regional power? The answer is nothing. Since the start of the Sahel crisis in 2013, ECOWAS countries have not offered to utilize their shared resources to improve the situation. If they had done so, perhaps the insecurity would not have become so pronounced. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré did not mince words when he said that one of the reasons for leaving the ECOWAS was the failure of ECOWAS to provide support to combat insecurity in Sahel countries, and rightly so. Now let's talk about democracy. Defenders of the bloc will say that ECOWAS has contributed to promoting democracy, but is that really true? Does promoting democracy just mean taking a strong stance whenever the military takes power? What about constitutional coups, where civilian governments manipulate the constitution to extend their hold on power? This happened in Guinea in 2020, where Alpha Condé was able to hold on to a third term in power until he was overthrown by the military. In the same year, President Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire also won the presidential election on October 31st, winning a controversial third term, but we all know that the election was not free and fair. How did ECOWAS respond to these? Were sanctions imposed on Guinea and Côte d'Ivoire? Of course not. ECOWAS did not say anything concrete. However, when military coups occur, ECOWAS appears to have the power to protect democracy. Democracy does not simply mean elections, but also means that the people have the power to elect politicians who represent their interests. However, ECOWAS, which is supposed to protect democracy, has never responded to an election in West African countries where free and fair elections have never been held. In many cases, the election results are manipulated and the people choose politicians they did not choose, which only makes them more despairing. Bola Tinubu, the current president of Nigeria, who also serves as the ECOWAS chairman, is a good example of a president who was not elected by the people, and today, Nigerians are suffering because of it. Speaking of military coups, ECOWAS's different reactions to the coups in 5 countries in the region prove once again how two-faced and biased the coalition is. When the coups occurred in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, ECOWAS immediately imposed sanctions and exclusion from membership and threatened military intervention in Niger. But how did it react in Chad? Besides a mere statement condemning Chad, what else did ECOWAS do? Nothing. This is because the Chadian coup was backed by France. So tell me, wasn't Ibrahim Traoré right when he said that ECOWAS had become a puppet of foreign interests? Indeed he was. The only reason ECOWAS threatened military intervention in Niger was because France, the United States, and the international community supported that decision. In fact, the decision of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso to leave ECOWAS is justified. As Ibrahim Traoré recently said, the bloc that is supposed to support these countries is now a threat. Recall that under ECOWAS sanctions, Nigeria cut off electricity to Niger just because of the coup and closed its borders to prevent the movement of goods into the country. Similar economic sanctions were also imposed on Mali and Burkina Faso. How do you think these sanctions have affected the economies of these countries? Is ECOWAS promoting economic integration in this way? The withdrawal from the bloc would certainly help ease the sanctions imposed on them, which are causing serious hardships for the people of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Civil society and organizations have started calling for ECOWAS to lift the sanctions, which they say are illegal and unjust, and calling for a dialogue between ECOWAS and Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. It remains to be seen whether ECOWAS will comply with the demands, but if there is any change in the decision of the 3 countries, ECOWAS will first need to prove that it is still credible and ready to serve the purpose for which it was established. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like his video, drop a comment, and share.